Hi, my name is Camille Maumet. I'm the current chair of the OHBM Open Science Special Interest Group. I want to thank you all for taking part in our events as attendees, as volunteers, backstage, on stage. I know I speak for everyone on the OSCIG to say that it has been incredibly important to receive your support when we asked for help, to see you today being here at our events. Before I get going any further, I would like to take a minute to acknowledge how challenging this year has been and is still for many worldwide. We know it goes very little distance. Our small contribution within the OSCIG was to try and build events that would be more diverse and inclusive. We know this is not the end of the way. There are still many directions in which we need to improve. But that's what we tried, and I want to thank all OSCIG officers for all their efforts this year. Can you believe that we are already at the end of the first week of the Open Science Room? This year, this event was led by Casgood Van Praad and Stefan Yunis, and I want to thank them and say how amazing it was to work with them. What they've built, like what they've made of the OSR is something that I could not have imagined. The quality of the program that they've put together, the quality of the talks, the quality of the overall layout is just truly amazing. There is one thing I would like to outline about the OSR, and I know this is one part Cass and Stefan are especially passionate about. It's the reach out to a bigger global community. In addition to the traditional route where OHBM participants got access to the OSR, which we see every year, and we saw this year by having the OSR on the virtual OHBM platform, Cass and Stefan built a second route where people would register at zero cost and get full access to all the talks and the OSR. And this was done through Crowdcast. And in fact, the experience with Crowdcast was even enhanced because we could have live Q&A, which was not possible with the main OHBM platform. So at the moment when we speak, we have more than 500 people who signed up on the zero cost access route. So I think this is something that was extremely important for Cass and Stefan, and I want to thank them because that has created a more global experience than what we would have seen with the OHBM route only. So thank you so much. Now, we shouldn't forget about the hackathon. It was last year, I don't know for you, just feels like it was such a long time ago. Remy Go and Lisa Levitis were our hackathon co-chairs this year. It has been just beautiful to work with them. They are both very professional, and it's just a joy to work with them. Like when we heard that we were moving to virtual events, this has been quite of a shock for the OSCIG. Maybe shock is too strong, but it was a big change because basically we had to rebuild all the events from the ground because everything was changed. When we heard that, well, basically, Remy and Lisa had already secured a venue in Montreal. They were deciding on the caterer, looking at the menus. And then suddenly we tell them, well, you know, after all, we're sorry, but this is going to be a virtual event. I won't say they just switched to virtual, but there was a pause. But then they just got onto it. And they built that amazing event where we had nearly 500 attendees from 36 countries, 38 projects. This makes it the biggest OHBM Brainhack to date. Lisa and Remy kept that format that has been going on for a few years, where you have a hack track where people hack on projects and a train track with like really high quality educationals. Remy and Lisa, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for like working with us. It was just great. Here's one thing I'd like to outline, which is true for the OSR and the hackathon. It was really important for the OSCIG to build events that were available for all at reasonable time. So no waking up in the middle of the night to attend the talk. Oh, unless you really want it, then you just attend the talks for another hubs, from another hub. But the idea of the 3 hubs, Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and the Americas, made it possible to have content that would run for everyone within typical working hours. And I really want to thank Cass, Stefan, Lisa, and Remy for working on that, because I think this was an important part to bringing a more global community into these events. And this brings me to the next awesome people I really want to thank. So this idea of 3 hubs would not have been possible without the amazing Asia Pacific team. I want to thank Kelly Gardner, who was the person who really led us into reaching out to that community. I also want to thank Chao Gan Yan and Angela Tam, who were co-hosts of the hackathon, and Chao Gan was also incredibly helpful to help us with Xiao Shen reach out to the Chinese community, and I'll get to that in the next slide. And I also want to thank Cooper Smoot, who jumped on board to be our hub manager just about 2 weeks ago, and he has been also incredible into making the Open Science Room work for Asia Pacific. But see how many people just joined and decided to help into the event. I just want to thank all of you, and it has just been amazing to see all that energy coming from that group. Did you know that they are the one who brought up Gather Town to the hackathon? So for those of you who don't know Gather Town, you have this little map on my slides, or just below here. It looks like a bit like a video game from the 90s, and you have a small character. You can pick a jacket and then change the color of your hair and so on. And you get to to move around that map. And as you get closer to other people, their video just fire up. And then you get to talk with like small group of people who are around you. So this mimics quite well what would happen in a standard in-person conference. I really want to share that feeling on the first day of the hackathon in the Asia Pacific hub. So this was the very first event of all of the hackathon, because Asia Pacific happens before the 2 other hubs. You would just go into Gather Town, and at the entrance you will have a team of volunteers. They all had dressed up with the same yellow jacket, and they would welcome you, help you get your setup, get your way around, and then you would enter the room and just go and chat with people. I mean, this feeling was just amazing, and the energy in that room was just beautiful. So thank you so much for bringing that to the hackathon, to all that team. And in the end, it turned out that even OHBM adopted Gather Town, so I think this is a massive success for Asia Pacific team. Thank you so much. Now, I've touched a little bit upon China. So one of the things that makes it difficult for us to reach out to the Chinese community is that, unfortunately, a lot of the tools we use are just not accessible from there. Think Twitter, where we do a lot of our communication. Think YouTube. Think Google Form, Google Document, all of them are just not accessible. And so I really want to thank Chao Gan Yan, Yuxing Li, Xiao Shen, who helped us design a setup that would make our events accessible from China. So finding an alternative for YouTube, you have a screenshot of the U over here, sending messages through WeChat, but also using Zoom rather than Crowdcast that was also unavailable in China. All of this is really important to us, and I really want to thank them for helping us in reaching out to a broader community. Chao Gan Yan also organized a boot camp, which was run in the afternoon of the hackathon Beijing time, and this also helped us reach out to a broader community of Chinese students who attended both the boot camp and the train track in the morning. So thank you so much. It was an amazing collaboration, and I hope the beginning of many more in the future. Now, we've talked about Asia Pacific in China, but beyond that, these events were really built with the community. So we were just blown up by the reply to our call for volunteers. And then all those teams that worked on different aspects. So the website team was just amazing. The welcome desk, I really loved it. The project advisors, the people who volunteered to be hackathon buddies and have meetings with first-time attendees. The social media team just did an amazing job. And all those people who were also available on stage and backstage. So the Crowdcast host, the Zoom host, the Q&A host, the Hackathon co-host, and so on. I'd like to give a specific shout out to the help desk team. So the way the help desk worked is that this was a Mattermost channel where people could go and ask questions. And this was initially an idea from Remy. And after a few days of hackathon, I was just using it myself. Like, it was just so beautiful to just go there, ask a question, and see people from the community coming and say, hey, I'm going to help because I already know the answer to that question. To me, this mimicked quite well what we see in Brainhacks or the type of conversation that could start in the open science room, where instead of like everyone working separately, you get people who just ask questions, say, I'm stuck on this, and then another person who has already been through that same issue just provide a solution. And that was such a nice feeling to be able to reproduce some of that collaborative research within the context of a virtual event. So thank you so much for the help desk team. And so I can't thank, unfortunately, everyone one by one, but in total, we had about 100 volunteers. Thank you so much for joining us. This would not have been possible without you. I want to talk more specifically about the Brainhack team. They've been on board very early on in the process, trying to help us building events that would be available virtually, even before we knew the event would be virtual. Some of them also had experience with Maumet, which helped us tremendously. I want to thank personally Célie Maté, Ishil, who were a co-host and hub manager in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I want to thank Eduardo, Alejandro, and Arshita, who were hub manager and co-host in the Americas. And of course, all of that community, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so by now you've probably heard about our sponsors, and I'm not going to read all their names out loud, but I want to say a little bit of a personal story about it. So I've already mentioned that when we heard about the move to virtual event, that was a little shock for the SIG. At that point in time, we also had to recontact all our sponsors to confirm whether they would still be happy to support events that were very different from what we had presented at the beginning when we agreed on sponsorship. And at that point in time, receiving prompt replies from sponsors who've been long-standing sponsors of the OSSIG was just invaluable. So I really want to thank them for that, because this is extremely important. Like, we need these funds to build these events, and knowing that sponsors were behind us was extremely important. I also want to thank our more recent sponsors from the Quebec community. It's beautiful to see that they've decided to support us, even though the meeting was not happening in Montreal anymore, but was going to be virtual. So thank you to all of them. They are extremely important to make these events possible. Okay, so now you might be asking, but what's next? I mean, the hackathon is over. It's the end of the first week in the open science room, so I recommend that you submit emergent sessions for the next week. It's not over yet, but I'm also very happy to announce another thing that is coming next, which is the OSSIG Fellowship. So the OSSIG Fellows will recruit a small cohort of early career scientists. And the idea is to boost your practice of open science and prepare them to be active participants for the 2021 OSSIG events. This will work by having regular meetings online with the full cohort or half cohort. And those people will meet with OSSIG officers or open science advocates. There will be more information in the coming months, so if you're interested, just tune in and just follow us, and you'll get more on this. I'm personally very excited about this program, and I can't wait to see that happening. Okay, I can't end my talk without thanking the whole of the OSSIG. I've already thanked Remy and Lisa, Cass and Stefan, I also want to thank Anna and Eugene, who are our secretary and treasurer this year. They've made everything run so smoothly. Like, this was incredibly useful to work with that team. And now I'm looking forward to the future. So Aki, Katie, Tristan, I look forward to see what you're going to build for next year and for more open science. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for giving us a chance to talk about Open Neuro for a moment. Hopefully you've had a great time in the Open Science Room throughout the meeting, and we're really happy to be to have sponsored the room. It's been one of the most exciting parts of the meeting for me for the last few years. Many of you are probably familiar with Open Neuro. I just wanted to give a plug for the project, which is a kind of a BIDS-centric platform for sharing all different types of data. Hopefully, if you haven't seen it, you'll go check it out. This is one of the projects that is run by our Center for Reproducible Neuroscience that focuses really on sort of open science in many different guises. We have a number of different projects around open data, both beyond Open Neuro. We also have NeuroVault, and then we're involved in the development of NeuroSynth as well. We develop a number of tools. Again, in the open, fMRI Prep and MRI QC are ones you may have heard of. We also have tools like NeuroPower. And finally, we've been deeply involved in the development of BIDS, and hopefully there's been a lot of action around BIDS in the Open Science Room in the last couple of weeks. And so if you want to know more about what we do in the center, you can check out reproducibility.stanford.edu. I wanted to just take a moment to say, how I view open science as a concept, right? And I think that it's, I really view it as a kind of a very big tent, right? There's all sorts of things that people interested in open science are doing, right? We're interested in open access, making sure that whatever, the knowledge that we produce is available to everybody. We're interested in open data. We're interested in open code, and we're interested in reproducibility. And sort of probably most importantly, we're interested in making science open to everybody who's interested in being part of it. And so when I think of open science, I don't think so much about, the things that we do as the values that we share. And I have images here of all the people who've been involved in the Open Science SIG recently, and have really made great contributions in making OHBM kind of one of the most open science centric organizations, I think, across all of science. So for me, these values are really, transparency and accessibility. So making sure that we share everything as openly as we can. Diversity and inclusion, making sure that we welcome everybody who wants to be part of it with open arms. And community mindedness, where we really focus on working together to solve problems rather than competing with one another in the way that science has often worked in the past. And I think that a lot of the things that have happened in the Open Science Room in the last few years, and hopefully this year as well, have really been done in that spirit. So I want to thank all of you for the efforts that you've made, both at this meeting and in the past, around sort of building open science in this organization, and hopefully you'll keep doing it in the future going on.